Believe it or not, if you're on part 4, you're actually almost done. You've actually had most of the key parts completed at this point. So we're going to now take those ideas that you've generated and formulated into an essay outline, so it starts to really make sense to be able to tell the story of the beginning of the Cold War, and also to be able to blame one side for the start of the Cold War after the alliance that they had generated in the Second World War. Now, the grading rubric itself is listed in along with the final document that you're going to produce. And if you want to be able to meet the score, use the outline. Because the outline is utilized to generate this grading rubric. So if you more or less are addressing the points in the outline, you're going to score relatively well on the narrative essay itself. So first of all, the outline document is in a separate work form here. So you should have this document open up, Cold War Beginnings Narrative Outline. And then from there, you've got a lot of boxes to be able to fill in, but you've actually done a good portion of what is required. So we're going to start off with the introduction paragraph. And so you've got the thesis statement that is at hand. In a lot of ways, you already have this. So just simply copy and paste the thesis that you've already produced into that particular box. Now, the one that precedes it is the hook, the introduction, something you've probably learned in your English classes. So think of something within the Cold War that might grab the attention of the reader. So whether they're pivotal or interesting events, like say, for example, the candy bomber during the Berlin blockade, just the notion of the rebuilding of the city itself, or even big ideas like the imagery that's laid out by Churchill in the Iron Curtain, right? The notion that the Cold War could possibly bring about a nuclear holocaust or Armageddon across the globe, and it could mean the end of humanity because of the world and this particular relationship that it is in. Or you could talk about how Europe, a lot of ways, the continent that has dominated the globe, is now in shambles because of the Second World War. But either something pivotal, something interesting to introduce the essay with, talk about the importance of the Cold War, and then that will lead into your thesis statement. The bulk of your essay, however, is going to be being able to use evidence in order to support the argument that you're making. So we're going to use an example here, documents 3 and then documents 4 or number 5. So that next part you have in the assignment is a quoting exercise. And you actually will need to go all the way down. So scroll down to the end and the bottom. There's a writing practice quoting exercise that's listed at the bottom. So go ahead and open up document number 3. And what you want to be able to do is to take elements of document 3 in order to sort of sort all of that out in the writing process at hand here. So use the graphic that is provided and try to fill in, use the quote that you've already generated, and then provide in the end. And you note that I have it really big at the bottom here, the analysis that is provided, and particularly this statement right here from document 3 and document 4, this demonstrated that. So go ahead and try to fill this in to the best of your ability. Pause the video right here and try to fill this in. Okay, you should have made an attempt at this point to quote document 3, document 4, and provide some analysis for us. Let me go and provide some responses of what that might look like. So here we start off with an all of those statement. So this is a reiteration of the thesis. So despite differences in political and economic ideologies, both the US and the Soviet Union worked together to defeat Germany. So this would be the topic sentence of your first body paragraph. Now we move on to discussing the documents at hand. At the Tehran Conference in 1943, they agreed to, quote, work together in peace and in the war and in the peace to follow. So make sure you cite the document number immediately afterwards. And then we're going to move on to the next one. Furthermore, the Soviet Union stated in the Tehran Conference, now you could choose either one, it's up to you, how you are leaning towards one side, you can start to do so in this paragraph here. The Soviet Union stated in the Tehran Conference, quote, they agreed to adopt a, quote, declaration of joint conduct of war and on the post-war collaboration. This is document number 5. If you choose document 4 and it's an image instead of a quote, again, make a description of that there. And then the key part is the analysis, right? This demonstrated that the Soviet Union made strong attempts to work with the United States in defeating Nazi Germany and in rebuilding Europe after the war, right? This is your interpretation of the two documents, and it's also supporting the point that you're making that despite them being different, they are working together, right? both in the document itself. So that's the quoting exercise. Now, once you're done with this, go ahead and move back up to the body paragraphs so scroll back up, and we're going to start to work on the various body paragraphs. Now, a few notes in regards to the body paragraphs. You should have 3 body paragraphs. Now, the number of pieces of evidence that you evaluate will differ. So it could be 1, it could be 2, it could be 4. So whatever you need, and you see as if applicable, go ahead and add or delete these as you would need. But let's go and talk about what you're actually doing here. Okay, so what you're going to do is, and really, you've done a good bulk of the work already. Okay, you want to be able to take these summaries here, and these again that you utilize to create your thesis statement. These elements will become your topic sentences. Okay, and so that's what you're going to start off with. Take this element here and place it as your topic sentence. Again, you may need to do some rewriting for it to make sense. Don't just do a direct copy. You may need to shorten it a little bit. Remember, you're trying to introduce a claim here in that topic sentence. And then what you want to be able to do is to describe, so use your description of the time period and place it in that next box. So you want to talk about the event, right? About, in this case, World War II, whatever event you're discussing, provide some historical background, because this is a narrative that we're looking at here. Then engage in placing the document. So you can identify the evidence by quoting it to start off with, and then provide analysis. Now you can flip these based on your writing. It's up to you. It doesn't have to be in this particular order at hand here. And so do this subsequently with the chart that you've already generated. Again, you've done most of the work already. So just place it in the correct boxes. Again, shorten things up so that they start to make sense. From there. And then go ahead at the end, provide a transition, which I'll get to in a moment. But an outline may look something like this. So here's a topic sentence whereby I'm going to blame the United States. So a topic sentence might start with this here. So here's the topic sentence. After luring many European countries into adopting capitalism, the U.S. used its military strength to intimidate communist nations in the late 1940s. Provide some context. Korea, which was once a Japanese colony, also became occupied territory that was divided in a fashion similar to Germany. So you provide some historical background. Now let's take a look at the evidence from the primary source documents. The U.S. had a strong interest in rebuilding Japan and in turning South Korea into a capitalist nation. In fact, Stalin was, now we're getting into the document itself, was so threatened by this in 1950, he warned North Korean leader Kim Il-sung about, quote, we get to the quoting the document, Japanese militarism will be restored as an ally of the United States and would threaten, and this is your analysis here, would threaten the existence of a newly established communist China and North Korea. So again, that's your writing that you're implementing to support at this point that the U.S. is using its military strength to intimidate communist nations. A second document. Despite the past history of the invasion of the Soviet Union, this is also your analysis. The United States blatantly formed the NATO alliance in 1948, which is a reference to document 30. In fact, the primary reason that the Warsaw Pact was formed in 1955 was, quote, a system of collective security in Europe from the North Atlantic bloc, which increases the threat of another and creates a menace to the national society of the peace-loving states, which he means in Eastern Europe. In this case here. So using multiple documents to support the point of the U.S. using its military capacity to intimidate countries that may want to be communist in this chunk. So you should be able to use the documents in this particular way. Then you want to end the body paragraph because, again, this is a narrative here. And so you've already addressed part of the narrative part of it in talking about the chronology, right? And you've described the time period at hand. You want to continue on with the transition, how things have changed, how sequences between this argument you're making with the next subsequent one. And so what you want to be able to do is to be able to take a look at the next set of documents or arguments that you're making. So if you are, say, for example, discussing Churchill's Iron Curtain speech and Kennan's Long Telegram in 1946, and then the next topic you're discussing is the Berlin blockade, take a look at your timeline that you've created. What happened between 1946 here and 1948? And so you want to talk about discussing events where one leads to another, right? This is a historical narrative. It's a story. And so in the context of the description of this time period and the transition, you want to be able to describe this. So events like, say, for example, the Truman Doctrine, the Greek Civil War, for instance, the Marshall Plan, all happen in between Kennan's long telegram and the Berlin blockade. So you can talk about these events here in between. In this case, so the transition will be discussing Truman Doctrine and the Greek Civil War in 1947 and the Berlin blockade in 1948, and that'll lead you to the primary source documents at hand here. And so again, provide a transition statement or conclusion statement if this is the last body paragraph that you're looking at. It may look something like this here. Finally, you want to conclude. And the way that you would conclude is to restate the thesis in different words. And so if your thesis is really vague at the beginning, make it more specific. If it's really specific, make it a little bit more broad, so you're discussing the big picture events as such. And so lastly, you want to end with providing sort of the big picture context. And we're going to do this in class here. But again, what are the consequences of the Cold War? Why was it so important in the first place, such that this relationship was really important and one side messed up? And this is the consequence that we're going to live with as a result. All right, good luck, and you should be able to finish the outline from there.